That's CJLO. We respect the music our DJs choose to play.
Are they playing f***ing Coldplay? How long will they wait? CJLO! How long will they wait for me?
Hello, hello. You're listening to the Concordian, and this is Sandra Herzegová, your co-host, alongside Nicholas Di Giovanni. Now we have Savannah Craig here, former news editor, also still contributing journalist student here at Concordia, who wrote an extensive piece on the opioids crisis here all throughout Canada. And she really went in detail and worked very hard on this piece. So we'll be here discussing with her today. Hello, Savannah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. How are you doing this morning?
Great. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks.
You're making your return to the Concordian radio show.
Yes, I am. It's been a while. Glad to be back.
You had to wake up early?
Yeah, very early. It's worth it.
So you wrote the piece called the killer drugs that strike our nation. But, there's a lot of obviously science terms. And just kind of explain what opioids are and what they do to your brain before we get into more detail.
For sure. So there are three different types of opioids. There are natural opioids. This consists of like morphine or heroin. There's synthetic and then semi-synthetic. So basically how it works is like the natural one is from the poppy, and then like synthetic is just kind of like the same chemical compound like mimicked. It's just developed by like very experienced like chemists. So yeah, basically how it works is you have a natural opiate receptor in your brain. So when you take something like heroin, it binds onto this receptor and it makes you high. And then there's also an opioid called naloxone. This doesn't have any effects on you. It doesn't make you high. It's actually just the antidote for an overdose. So all it does is, like, say you're overdosing on heroin, it knocks heroin off the opiate receptor and replaces it with naloxone, and then it reverses someone from slowed breathing or just any other signs of like overdose.
We've heard about like the opioids crisis. It's been years. It's ongoing every year. It's been kind of a crisis. Mm-hmm. Can you give us some statistics as to where it is right now?
So basically where it's impacting, the province it's impacting the most would be BC. Approximately the last, most recent data I saw was approximately over 900 deaths within a year, and that was last year's statistics. But the thing that I think is very scary is the year before it was only about less than between 400 and 500. So it like completely doubled. And the thing too is last year's statistics showed that out of all of the opioid deaths that occurred in BC, fentanyl was responsible for 61%. So that can be like fentanyl completely or like fentanyl contaminated in other drugs such as like heroin. But the second province would definitely be Ontario. It's becoming a lot more of a problem there. I'm originally from Ontario, so each summer I go back, I kind of notice it's more of an issue, but I felt this year I definitely noticed it was more of an issue. Like just walking around the streets of Toronto, like you can see a lot more people passed out. I've had a few friends who have said they'd seen people overdosing, so that's like pretty scary. So, yeah. So
there are different types of opioids. There's heroin, there's fentanyl, and there's carfentanil that are damaging people's lives. And explain the difference between the three of them.
So they're all opioids, but it's just mainly the potency that makes them different. Fentanyl is about 100 times more potent than heroin, and carfentanil is 100 times more potent than fentanyl. So that's pretty scary because carfentanil, it just kind of like picture like a few grains of salt. That's really all it takes to induce an overdose. So fentanyl and carfentanil, a lot of it is being manufactured in China and sent over, like hidden through mail and stuff like that. So, I mean, some of it is being detected at the border and being caught, but there's still a lot getting in through the country, and it's being sold. And yeah, it's really scary because you never really know what exactly is in your drugs. Even if you don't really take opioids, I think you should still be concerned that this epidemic could impact you, because even if you take something like MDMA, you know, you're just going to a party, like you think you're fine, it could be contaminated with like fentanyl or carfentanil, and it's important to use like an at-home test kit and just like be prepared if anything can happen. But also with at-home test kits, like if there are certain parts of the drugs that are contaminated, like you may not always be sure that you're going to test the right part of the drugs, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's a little dangerous, but it's just always good to know what's going on and kind of have a backup plan in case an overdose arises. Like, you know what to do and how to handle the situation.
You know, explain the signs and symptoms of an overdose and what to do in that situation.
Yeah. So sort of symptoms of an overdose can be like clammy skin. You can see someone's eyes rolling to the back of their head sometimes. The most severe symptom is repression of breathing. So if they start breathing slower, also an overdose of like an opiate overdose often looks like they're falling into a sleep. So sometimes they can start snoring and stuff like that. But that and like repression of breathing are like the two main symptoms. Like right as you see those, you should give them naloxone. You should call 911 and sort of assess if the situation seems to get better. If not, I would inject them with naloxone again after a few minutes. Also, if you don't have naloxone, give them CPR, start breathing for them until paramedics arrive.
There seems to be a strong link, right, with doctors, people being prescribed regular opioids, painkillers, and then when they leave, they get a dependence on it. Then they're stuck on the street. They don't have the prescription anymore. Where do they go? They turn to harder drugs, than the street drugs, right? Street opiates. Yeah. So what the doctor there said, like, okay, it's important to know to not prescribe as much, but my concern is, should these pills not be prescribed at all for this type of pain? Or
I think doctors should be more aware of the situation, because I felt like doing my research, I noticed a lot of situations where it's sort of mild back pain and they're prescribing things like morphine, things that they really don't need that heavy of a dose. I think that when they do want to prescribe these things, but they want to be aware of like addiction and other people selling things, they should just be more careful in the way they do it. I was reading one article that was discussing a doctor in Ottawa who he was prescribing fentanyl to someone. And so fentanyl is often available like as a patch. So he would not prescribe fentanyl unless he would not re-prescribe fentanyl unless the patients would give him back the used patches. So for that, it would just ensure that they're not selling them or giving them out to anyone else. So I think that's a really good way to kind of track how much is being used and track where it's going.
What is the Canadian government, and more specifically Montreal or Quebec governments, doing to prevent from this spreading outside of BC and then reaching Montreal?
I think the main thing is trying to catch it at the border to stop it from coming in. But to sort of try and handle the epidemic, or in Montreal, possible epidemic. Denis Coderre released in September that currently only first responders have naloxone kits and have training how to use them, but soon the city wants to implement firefighters and like policemen to have them in certain locations like Hochelaga, Maisonneuve, like in that area where it's a little bit more seen for opiate overdoses to happen. I think naloxone is a little bit less accessible in Montreal. I know that in Toronto and in Ontario and in BC, if you give your health card and you're also either an opioid user or have like a loved one or a family member who use opioids, you can get training and the kit for free. So I think that's really good just to make it more accessible. I know that right now Montreal only has 4 pharmacies where you can get naloxone, so that's just not very accessible at all.
In Montreal, there are also 2 safe injection sites for heroin users. Do you think these safe injection sites will help battle the opioid crisis and then tainted drugs on the streets?
I definitely think so. When I was talking to someone who works in Toronto in the harm reduction field, so she works at a pop-up safe injection center in Moss Park, and she was telling me that they test for fentanyl, and often when the test is positive, like the users will still use for example, heroin, just because often when you have an addiction like such as heroin, it's so potent, like you're really not yourself and you're so dependent on these drugs that it's like, they're so expensive, you would rather like risk it than not take it at all. And I think it's just good that even though these people are willing to take it, there's still nurses and people who know the signs and know what to do to be around, that if they do have an overdose on the contamination of fentanyl, something can be done.
Yeah. We could ask questions about this, talk about this. There's so much to say like about this crisis. I actually, for a last question, I'd like to ask you if sadly someone who's listening right now knows someone dealing with addiction to strong opiates, to heroin, what can be done to help that person? What do you think is the best way to cope with that?
I mean, it's hard to have these conversations, but I think it's really important to know that this situation can affect anyone, especially if you don't think you have friends that use opioids. Like, you may not know, but a lot of people kind of do these things in privacy. And I think it's just important to kind of tell them that you're there for them and you're aware, but also it's vital for you to be prepared, because I just wouldn't suggest kind of thinking that you might be like the lucky one, like it may not impact you. I think it's just good to encourage those around those people to have naloxone and know what's going on and know the signs, and just even if you may not like drugs, encourage your friend, like, if you have to use, like, I want to be around you or something, because I don't want you to do this alone in case you overdose, like, and you fall asleep. There's nothing you can really do. So I think it's just important, if, like I said before, if you don't think you have any friends, like, I don't think that's always the case. Like, I think there's always a lot of people around there who do it in hiding because there's a lot of stigma around drugs. So yeah, just be prepared for any situation, I think.
Okay, thank you so much, Savannah. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
This morning. Hello, Mia. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great this morning. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. So you wrote a piece this week about Humans of Concordia, and it's about Daniel, who has his own t-shirt design brand. So it was interesting to read about what students here are doing in fashion.
Yeah, exactly. It was exciting to hear about a student who launched his own clothing line at just 20 years old. So that was a fun piece to write. Yeah, very entertaining.
Hello, Daniel. Are you on the line with us?
Yep, hey.
How are you doing?
Good, you?
I'm all right. We're all right here. So, Daniel, you're a computer science student, correct?
Yes.
All right. And last September, we just said it, you launched your own clothing line at 20 years old. So how do you feel about that accomplishment?
Well, I have to say that at first I was for sure really nervous because I had no idea if it would go well. But seeing that it went pretty well, in my opinion, for the first month, I'm actually, I'm like a bit relieved, but I'm also very proud. And I'm just kind of excited to see where it goes.
Explain to me here, for anybody who hasn't read the story yet, or for the people who are listening to the show, what exactly are the t-shirt? What's on them? Give me a little background.
Okay, so, the t-shirt itself is a cut-and-sewn design, so it's not a blank like Gildan or American. I probably would want their own t-shirt physically. And then on the t-shirt, so there's the brand name, but it's very minimal because we want to focus more on the design. So the design itself is like a hand-drawn drawing I've made in like a sketchbook or something, and after, it's kind of just like a face or different faces and kind of distorted, like messed around with, and then it was very abstract, but also you can sort of see what it is. And then we took that, and then we put it on a computer, and then we screen printed it on the T-shirt.
Mm-hmm. And how often do you draw these sketches of those distorted faces and twisted people?
It depends. Sometimes I've gone like a month or two without doing any of them. Sometimes I do like 2 or 3 in 1 week. It's just if I'm like inspired or like Miro in the article, let's say I'm in a bad mood or if I'm down or something, like I want to distract myself, I draw one, and then that's about it.
Mm-hmm. And how did you? So on the website, by the way, it's heurdesieste.com. How did you come up with the names? The names of the T-shirts are Mathilde, Noah, and Tristan. How did you come up with those names?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I sat down with my partner, and we didn't want to write something generic like, 3 faces T-shirt, or like 1 face T-shirt, or like big mouth or something, because that'd be really boring. Mm-hmm. So we kind of just looked at them, and then we tried to like name them, not like kids, but like we were like, hey, what's the first name that pops up in your head? And after, like, okay, this one looks like Mathilde, and then after, like, okay, I'm feeling like a Noah, and then that's pretty much how it went.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of instinctively named.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and like you said in the beginning, you weren't really sure about pursuing this, but what was the big push? Like, what motivated you to actually pursue that line? Because in the beginning you were a bit hesitant because you thought it was too complicated. What was the push? Like, how did you get motivated to pursue that?
Well, I think like Mia wrote before, I was at a house party once, and I have a good friend of mine, and he talked to me, and was like he pulled me aside, like, so, like, when are you going to do something in fashion? I was like, I don't know, it sounds like impossible. I've already tried. Like, look, you have to do something. I was like, I'll see. And then at one point, my partner just messaged, like, he didn't, like, start with, like, oh, hey, how are you? What's up? He just, like, messaged, like, I want to do a clothing line. I'm like, okay, I have some ideas. I was like, okay, let's talk. So after we discussed ideas, and, like, it just happened.
Yeah. Also, just kind of to end, my last note for you is, what advice would you give to some other young people like you who would like to pursue maybe not necessarily a clothing line, but any like some small business and entrepreneurship? What advice would you give them to work on that, maybe push them? Well,
just for starters, we're kind of in a time where everyone is trying to make a small business or small company or do like a startup or a starting brand. And my advice would be try to do something different, which is very cliche, but it's true, because if you just kind of blend in with the rest, you're not going to move forward, because if there's a million brands or companies like you, then it's kind of dead. So I'd say try to find something that you can do something similar, but just be different, stand out, be unique.
Mm-hmm. So work hard and be motivated, right?
Yeah, that too.
All right. So thank you so much for your time, Daniel. If you want to check out Tristan, Mathilde, and Noah, go to heurdesieste.com. You heard that right the first time, heurdesieste.com. Thank you, guys.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danielle, and thank you so much, Mia, for sharing with us this morning. Next, we'll have our feature. We'll talk about our feature story this week, feature cover story, which is about the technology sandbox. So that'll be in the minute after the break.
But I was down and out like last week. Tell me, where have you been?
Because I went to meet, by chance, Elisa at the Sandbox, and I never heard of it before, and she told me she was working on her own 3D print, and it was just so amazing. So, Elisa, could you tell me a bit about, you spent you enjoy being there, you spend time there. Could you tell me a bit about the Technology Sandbox?
For sure. Well, I kind of stumbled upon it one day. I was on the way. The position of the Technology Sandbox is rather odd, as it is between the main library rooms and the bathroom. So many people actually stumble upon it as they go to the bathroom. And that's kind of how I ended up out there. I saw the 3D printers, and it was one of my friend's birthday, and I was like, I need to get them a present. And I thought, well, I can make them something from the 3D printers. Ended up making my own 3D prints, and then I realized all of the technologies that were available at the Technology Sandbox, fell in love with it, and now I spend at least 20 minutes every day in that place, and Thursdays and Fridays I meet there all day working on projects I have. It's a really good place for any kind of projects you have, electronics, 3D printing. You can make stickers, you can sew clothing, you can play video games all day if you want to go. You can just do that.
But really, it's a neat place to have, and it's a place where you can explore new things and acquire knowledge throughout experiencing things for yourself.
Thank you, Elisa. And Rahul, could you tell me what is your role at the Technology Sandbox, and what do you do there as a worker?
Yeah, so I work as the Technology Sandbox assistant there, and one of my role is to help people to get started. So basically, if you have an idea, if you want to build something, if you are in arts or if you are in media creation or something, so you have this crazy idea of building something new, like a 360-degree movie. So I can help you to get started. That this is a device and this is how it works, and this is how you can edit, how you can make movies, and then you can take it over. So this is my first role. My second role is the maintenance of lab with Taylor, so with Scene and Taylor. So it's we check all the instruments and make sure that all things are working there. Yeah, this is my role.
Thank you so much. Also, there's a lot of things, Elisa, you're mentioning the different things we can do there, the different services available. There's also rentals. What else can we rent from them, and what else is available there? Yeah.
So curiously enough, the Technology Sandbox has a lot of material to loan out. They have the first thing that comes to my mind is that they have a lot of material for media creation, which it includes camera, microphones, green screens, light kits, tripods, and a bunch of accessories you can have that can help you out if you're making anything that's media related. They also have elements that comes toward their gaming section. You have the PlayStation virtual reality headsets that comes with an actual PS4 and with video games. They also have for the electronic sections, they have something that is very well known among tech community. It's the Raspberry Pi programming kit. It's a Pi that is it's a kit that is very helpful when learning how to program on nano computers. They also have sensor kits, motor kits for you to if you're building robots or such, and something that they're gonna launch out for rent is the Brainwave. They're BCI. Having the they're launching. It's
known as BC. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
It's known as BCI, which is the brain computer interface. It's pretty new device. It can generate, it can detect how your brain signals are generated. So suppose you have EEG device in which it detects your brain signal, your heart signal. So we have this dry, it uses dry technology. So you don't need to put any liquid on that. You just attach that device to your brain, and if you are meditating, it can find out that you are meditating. If you are thinking something else, if you are thinking so much, it can find out that you are thinking so much because your brain waves is distorting so much.
Can it read your mind? Is that it? It could just tell that you're thinking a lot, but it can't tell what you're thinking, right?
Right now, no.
No, maybe later, maybe in a few years.
Later on,
I don't know if I would like that.
Yeah.
No, it's fun. It's definitely interesting where technology can go.
Exactly.
If you could, there's a lot of people who come there, and guys came across different people working on personal projects. First, I just wanted to know also, is this free and accessible to all students or to anyone? To who is this available to?
So the Technology Sandbox is available to anybody at Concordia, and that includes staff as well. Staff is more than welcome to come in, and if they have projects, they're more than welcome to work on them. And it's all free. You can rent out things for free. You don't have to pay for the 3D printing. You don't have to pay for anything you do there. If you have a cool project, you want to do it, you go right ahead.
And sorry, did you want to add something?
Yes, all is free. Yet we have some limitations, which we tell them, like in 3D printing, your print should be within that period of opening and closing time, and you should use one print at a time, not all the printers. We have some limitations which can make sure that it will be accessible to all the students and only one guy is not using all of things. And if you are doing it for your purposes, like learning purposes, it's free. But for commercial, no, it's not. If you are making like a design, like 100 prints of that, no, we don't allow it because it's for learning. And all of this is funded by CSU, Concordia Students Union. So the printing cost is too less. That's why it's free. Yeah.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Elisa. Let's. Do we have time for one last question for you guys? If you could tell me, what is your favorite? What do you guys both enjoy most doing at the Sandbox when you go? What are the type of projects? And maybe also on a side note, I think before I wanted to ask, who are the projects that you've seen there? People working on their things. You must have encountered many people. Have you guys came across any cool projects recently? And then tell me what your personal favorite project or to do there is.
Yeah, so there was one guy who was working on the project of making an entire 3D printer himself. And there was a second guy who was working to make, like, he has this skateboard and he was putting a motor in the skateboard so that the skateboard can move. It was pretty cool.
Trinity, right? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
no,
Trinity.
that's a different one. Sorry, that's a scooter. Okay.
Yeah. And yes, in this kind of projects, and there are people who are making 3D prints to make an engine. And one of the coolest project which I like was, there was two people from, like, I think from UAV. They came with their car and they wanted to test it in the virtual reality. So we built the virtual reality environment for them so that they can test their racing car.
That's really cool. Thank you so much, Rahul. Any one last word for you, Elisa, of your favorite part of
As for my favorite part, I think it really comes to the 3D printing, because you can just walk in any morning, you can just walk in, look for a design and say, okay, today I'm going to build this. Today I'm going to print this and then I'm going to use it every day. Or it's something that I'm going to decorate my house with. It's something that I'll give to someone as a gift. It's something really, it's an amazing opportunity that you're given to create anything you want. And I think the accessibility to it is also a very important point. The fact that while it's open from Mondays to Fridays from 10 to 6, it's still 8 hours. And 8 hours is you can make many things. You can create many things in 8 hours. So that's definitely something I really appreciate. Something that I also do enjoy is the sticker cutter. So there's a session. There's a place where you can design any sticker you want, cut it, and then slap it on something, and then bam, you made a new design for something else. So I really appreciate that as well.
Well, I appreciate both of you coming in here today and sharing about this with us today. That's really great. Thank you so much, both to Rahul Ranjan and Elisa Barbier. Now we'll be going into sports. We'll just have a quick break. Thank you.
9 a.m. I'm Nicholas DiGiovanni with Sandra Hercegova. We got Big Matthew Coit here.
Okay.
Big assistant sports editor. How's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good. You talked to George Sanchez, head coach of the women's soccer team this week. He's been with the Stingers since 2002. What are some of the things that you talked to him about, and some of the philosophies that he brings to the soccer team?
You know, he's, like you said, he's been with the team 15 years at this point. He is the program, essentially. He's spent the past 15 years building teams, bringing in players, recruiting. A lot of what he talked about was he's really focused on the off-field success of the players after school. And he talked a lot. I'm going to paraphrase, but he said that he's trying to give people, the players, the women he coaches, the tools to succeed, hopefully on the field, but as well off the field when they, something he said was, I like when players come back, 10 years later and they tell me that's maybe some advice I gave them, help them outside of soccer, outside of school, help them in their life. And that's something that he really stresses.
And we also spoke to some players. What were some of the things the players said?
Every player talked about his passion, talked about his drive to succeed, and how much he cares for the program, the team, the players. And he really, according to the players, really puts himself in a position to be a part of their academic success.
sticking with the Stingers, I believe it was last Wednesday, the Stingers were supposed to have a game scheduled Thursday night against the Montreal Carabangs football game, and the Carabangs canceled the game because a case of gastro within the team. And the Stingers released, I think it was last night or this morning, that they're appealing the decision. Just, I don't know, give me your thoughts about this whole situation.
It's a really bizarre situation. You don't usually see teams... When a team like University of Montreal, they canceled the game. It was them who canceled the game. And, Concordia is...
And it's not going to be replayed.
It's not, which I was very surprised to hear. I thought maybe they'd throw it in at the end of the season, but it's not. So both teams have one less chance to get a win, which in this division is extremely important. So for Concordia to appeal and ask the RSEC that the Cagabang should forfeit the game, big power move from the Stingers, but obviously Cagabang responded saying that Concordia should forfeit the game because they refused to play on Monday, I believe.
Yeah, I heard that the Carabangs proposed to play on Monday, and the Stingers wouldn't do that because they have a game this Friday at McGill. So the Carabangs are also appealing that decision, and the Sherbrooke Fair are also involved in the decision. I have no idea why, but they're in it. They're appealing a decision. I don't know whose side they're on. I believe they're on Montreal's side because it would help their favor for the playoffs. Expanding our horizons, Montreal Canadiens lost last night 3-1 to the Chicago Blackhawks in their home opener. They dropped to 1-3 record.
Yeah.
Are you worried at all?
No,
no,
I'm not. It's disappointing that any team that starts off 1-3 after finishing first in the East or in the division, last year, they finished first. Like they apparently were one of the best teams in the East, and this season they've been unable to maintain momentum, and it's been tough for them to find chemistry and get consistent pressure going.
Well, then again, it's 4 games into the season. Look, the Montreal Canadiens have started the past 2 seasons with 10-0 records, 9-0-1 records, and in each season they've burned out by December, January, February. 2015, 2016
so
season.
You're saying that if they lose early, they get all the losses out of the way?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we've seen the past 2 seasons having a hot start means absolutely nothing because it's a 6-month long season, 82 games, and I don't know. I just think that starting 1-3, there's no reason whatsoever to be worried. I think right now in Montreal Canadiens, at least the fan base circles that we saw on Twitter last night, Matt.
We saw some pretty good tweets.
We had some good tweets that it's
good
as
tweets,
if
good memes.
I have to check my calendar because sometimes I think this is April 11th and they're battling for the playoffs. And there's 4 games left. No. It's October 11th, and there's 4 games into the season.
Everybody knows you plan the parade in October.
Yeah. It's 1 game and it's done. I'm going on a bit of a tangent and rant here. But we just know how...
Big sports editor rant.
Big sports editor. I'm taking over from Alex Cole on that one. Who's not here, friend of the show.
Oh my God.
I think it would have been interesting if he was here. But no, seriously, there's a lot of positive for the Montreal Canadiens right now. They had 42 shots against Corey Crawford.
Shots, yeah.
Against Henrik Lundqvist in New York on Sunday. They had about 40 shots, 2 disallowed goals, which made no sense to me because both goals went off New York Rangers players and in.
The Shaw one, he kicked it.
He kicked it in, but it hit off another Ranger, and he kicked it from behind the goal line.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, well, that's another argument for another day. I don't know.
I think, like you said, it's the 4th game of this season. I think if this trend continues after October, then you can start seeing some panic, some worries. Then you'll see the team hopefully make adjustments. I've been saying for the past 8 months to trade Galchenyuk.
He needs to go. He's just so bad.
It's all mental. I think for the Canadiens at this point, like I think you posted, they're shooting like a 2%.
Yeah, their shooting percentage 2%.
No team shoots that.
No,
never.
It's not sustainable.
They'll have a game where they they put up 5 or 4 goals, or they just need to come across a team that they can take advantage of. So, but they haven't looked out of it. And in that Chicago game, long stretches of period where they really didn't look in it, but for the most part this season they've been a part of every game. They haven't really been kicked around too much.
No, and they've been shooting. I think also right now one of their biggest issues is the power play. Have you watched their power play? Have you seen the setup?
It's weird. They they had a decent power play last game, I think.
Against New York or against Chicago?
No, sorry, 2 games ago then. Against Buffalo, I think.
Oh, that was 4 games ago.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm getting there.
Assistant sports editor, you should know this.
It's weird that their passing play looks good sometimes, but it's just too much hesitation. No one wants to pull the trigger. You have Alex Hemsky
on the power play.
Top power play is a problem.
Anytime you have Alex Hemsky playing,
Yeah.
it's a problem. He's just been terrible.
Yeah.
And I think it was Galchenyuk on the power play. In the slot. Galchenyuk was in the power play, and then Drouin and Weber were at the point, and it was just the weirdest thing I've ever seen, where they basically set up as a square with Galchenyuk in the middle, and
They
they
don't
were
have
just
any pressure down the middle.
They
They're all circling the outside.
It was-
You get someone in front of the net, then you get someone taking shots in the slot. My strategy would just be give it to Weber every shot.
I think that's what they're trying to do.
But teams are playing him.
Yeah.
Like you saw, even on the 5-on-3 yesterday, you saw Jonathan Taves essentially ignore every other player on the ice and just stick to Weber.
Yeah, I think that's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to tee up Weber for a shot, and that seems to be their only option right now.
Having Drouin on the point really surprises me too, because I never figured him as a player who could pound shots by goalies.
No, he's the playmaker on this. He's the one who's kind of controlling the play. There was one point on a power play yesterday where he was along the boards and he had no room, and he just kept turning and turning and turning, looking for the pass. He managed to keep control of the puck, but he's not going to be the type that's going to shoot. He's going to look for the pass. He's always looking for Shea Weber pass. Even Max Pacioretty, if he lines up along the face-off circle, he's not going to be taking the shot now. It's Weber shoot, and there's a big problem with that. In my opinion, they should take Hemsky off, take Galchenyuk off.
Trade the team, trade Price, trade Pacioretty.
Just move. Just move to Quebec City.
Deno in a first for Crosby.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I see it happening. But it's just all mental. They'll hopefully, knock on wood, we'll finally find a little bit of success, because right now it seems a little bit unsustainable that they're doing this badly.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, 4 games and their PDO is just I don't know what it is, but it's probably really low and it's really unsustainable.
I was messing up my fantasy, but besides that,
how's your fantasy doing?
I'm getting smoked
in hockey.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and everything. I'm not good at this fantasy stuff.
Even in football, NFL.
Oh man, especially football.
I finally picked up a win in our league in football. I think I have a 2-3 record now.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, must be. Speaking about the NFL, must be frustrating to be a Bills fan.
I don't get it. You go out and you beat Atlanta, who was in the Super Bowl last year. You lose to Cincinnati, who has Andy Dalton.
And you beat Atlanta on the road too.
On the road. You play an incredible game. You go to Cincinnati, and then they didn't get smoked, but they didn't win, which hopefully was expecting.
Oh, you need to win, but
Tyler Taylor, very human, does not look capable of carrying an offense when things don't go right.
Well, only a few quarterbacks in the league are above human. One of them, Drew Brees. Another, Tom Brady. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers, what he did against the Dallas Cowboys.
No, but I'm saying the Bills need to find, a lot of teams need to find an elite quarterback. It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But, you're seeing a lot of times where teams are, for some reason, either overpaying for quarterbacks or not paying to get one when they sorely need one. Anyways,
that will do it for sports. For Sandra Hercegova, Mia Anuri, Eliza Barbier, Savannah Craig, Matthew Coit, and Olivia O'Malley, and other guests that we've had on this show. I am Nicholas DiGiovanni. You are listening to the Concordian Radio Show.